right, hi everyone. I think we're going to get started again. I'm Erin Livingston, and I'm a second-year student here at ELSOM. Thank you again for being here today. Our next speaker will be Dr. Anil Menon. Dr. Menon is president of Globalisation and Smart+Connected communities at Cisco. A key globalization priority for Cisco, Smart+Connected communities is focused on working with countries and cities around the world to use the network as a platform for driving economic, social, and environmental sustainability. Prior to joining Cisco in 2009, Dr. Menon held several positions as a senior executive at IBM Corporation. Before that, he served as the head of the Department of Marketing at Emory University's Business School. He's also worked with the Sony Corporation in business strategy and with the Strategic Planning Institute, an international business think tank which originated at Harvard Business School. I've also learned that Dr. Menon is an avid user of social media, with over 150 followers on Twitter. His handle is @Anil_Cisco if you'd like to join the conversation. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Menon.
Good morning. You know, this is not very fair, Ravi, to put me right after the cool companies and before lunch. So, and that on my birthday. So when you said gifts, I'm letting you know it's my birthday, and and you can give me your watch. Thank you. You know, my presentation is going to be a little different. In fact, you may wonder why it's here in a marketing organization and marketing discussion. I used to be in marketing. I was a CMO for the entire of IBM's systems business, the $25 billion piece of IBM. From there, I moved on and said I want to do something a little bit more general manager for all the reasons that were mentioned this morning, which is that the pure marketing, the way we used to think about marketing, the way we talked about marketing has changed. And CMOs are almost like endangered species if they didn't get that thing correct, in the sense that you can sell the vision of CMO to the CEO, he or she may get it, but you better sell it also to the different business units because they don't know what to expect from marketing. Most of, especially in industrial companies, like an IBM or a Cisco or any of the others. So for me, going into the general management side, especially now that I'm at Cisco, is a great thing. What I am going to talk about is connecting many of these things. It's interesting you said, Mark Zuckerberg said connecting the world. Well, that's where we come in at Cisco. And I'm just going to say why and what in the context of what we do so that you understand not only how dramatically things have changed, but also what we have to do in marketing, and especially in business-to-business marketing. So we all know Cisco, I think, except my father. When I left IBM and moved to Cisco, the first thing he said, and I could hear him because he's got a little hearing problem, so he speaks a little louder. So he's thinking I'm not hearing this while he's telling me, talk to him gently. I think he got fired at IBM. He's gone to some company we've never heard of. So the whole thing is Asian. So obviously they don't believe that you should move jobs, one thing. Second one is, why would you leave IBM? And before that was, why would you leave academia? You were a tenured professor, you were department head, and why would you leave that and go to a company and then start from scratch? But Cisco, as many of you know, is 25 years old. And was about $1 billion 16 years ago. Today we are over $40+ billion, and we have $48 billion in cash. We generate, after paying everything out, we generate $2.5 billion of cash each quarter. And we spend 13.9% of our revenues on R&D, which most people don't recognize. I think we are up there, maybe even higher than most of the software companies. Maybe, I think Facebook probably might be up there. But we spend, so that is $6 billion in R&D, but we also spend over $2 to $3, $4 billion. In last 1 year, we spent over $10 billion on acquisitions. So we are a hugely acquisitive company, we are a hugely investment company. Why? Because we are the plumber of the internet. And we are very proud and highly paid plumbers of the internet. At any given point, over 80% of the traffic that is on the internet worldwide is going through a Cisco router or a Cisco switch. So when you buy, we like it. Because that means you're going to put more data into the network and more stuff for us to do. And that is what we invested. So all the things that we were talking about here, why is it that you were not able to do things on mobile a few years ago? How is it that the mobility network, the mobility of the network, how is that going to connect? All of that is because of the stuff that we are putting into the network and structuring. So now, having said all of that, What does that mean for us here and what I'm going to cover? If you think about a company like Cisco, we said, when you have 70+ market share, and even though it's growing rapidly in America, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that, the fact of the matter is the tyranny of numbers are going to kick you and hit you right in the face because the growth for the future is not in the major markets, it's in the emerging markets. It is just the tyranny of numbers that kick you. So 5 years ago, when John was getting pounded by Wim Elfrink, his number 2 person at that time, who headed up all the services, saying, world is changing, world is changing, world is changing, and we're not a globalized company. In fact, I would argue Cisco is not even an American company, it's a California company. In fact, I come down to the point of saying it's not even a California company, it's a San Jose company, and in fact, if I want to be even more accurate, it's not even a San Jose, it's a Tasman Drive Building 10 company. Everything leads to Building 10 on Tasman Drive. In fact, I tease the head of corporate development because when you drive in, you see WebEx. I say, could you at least acquire companies that are not on Tasman Drive? Can you at least go like 2 streets to the side and acquire a few of those companies? Because even though we're in 165 countries, and by the way, here's the interesting thing, $40+ billion business where over 80% of our revenues come every quarter. So every quarter we have to generate 80% of our business. We're not like IBM with 60% of our annuities kicking in at the beginning of the year. I know how much I'm going to make, at least 60. We are 80% every quarter in, quarter out. So it's a sales engine, and we are also 85% of it comes to our partners. So we're almost like a franchise company. Imagine running a company of that scale and not be a global company. So 5 years ago, John told Wim Elfrink, Dutch, this is an important point to mention about the Dutch, I says, if you believe in this so much, why don't you go over there and start a second headquarters? So he said, that's a great idea. I'm going to think. He says, no. I want to announce it tonight at my wedding reception. Son's wedding, because he was harassing him, that was his punishment. So by end of day, you come back and tell me whether you and Kate are going. So 2 days later, they announced to the world they're setting up a second headquarters in Bangalore. We were 1,000 people 5 years ago. This year, we're going to cross 12,000 people at our headquarters. We're going to be 15,000 in the next 2 years. And we have another 10,000 people sitting. Now, here's the point. 10,000 people that work for Wipro, Infosys, for Cisco are doing what we would consider to be lower-end application management. The other 10,000, we are running businesses. Like I run my global Smart+Connected communities, which is not publicly announced, although I heard that Davos that John just mentioned this morning or yesterday on his thing. We will be $1 billion business within 3 years. That is the business that I run. But I also am the Deputy Chief Globalization Officer for emerging markets. So I'm going to combine those two and say, what does that mean for us? What does that mean for all of you? And what does that mean for us as businesses when we go forward? So these are the 3 trends. Here's the interesting thing. When I left IBM, there was no way I could do a presentation at an executive committee meeting or any meeting at IBM without the first 10 pages of market insights. And that was one of the functions that reported to me. And you got pounded by Sam, you got pounded by Ginny, you got pounded by everybody on market insights. And then only can you start talking about what you're going to do about it. This is a culture that Lou pushed in. I do presentations today at Cisco. We don't even have 1 page of market insights. Because we believe in market transitions. This is a culture at Cisco, this is a culture of Silicon Valley, and that's probably what happens even at a Facebook and the others, which is, what are the trends that are happening? Are we going to jump on those trends early enough? Are you going to shape it? It's a cultural DNA thing. And they go by noise, they go by signals, more than by patterns, and more than by data, which is also a plus and a minus, by the way. So what are the 3 trends that we have captured that I'm going to talk a little bit about? One is the social demographics. The world is aging, the world is shrinking. Many parts of the world are shrinking, and then there's this huge hypergrowth in other parts of the world. I'll speak to that in a minute. Second one is economics. It's simple economics are kicking in. And the third one, which is also this whole issue of environmental issues. By the way, this is one of the scariest things which I want to talk a little bit about. Over the next 5 to 10 years, more than 250 new cities are going to be built in just 2 countries, China and India, with 1 million population. How are you going to build a city that we took hundreds of years to build within 20 years? And by the way, the number says that if you don't get it done, we're in deep trouble. Because urbanization in India is 28%. The world's average is 50%. World is going to move to 60% urbanization. If India goes just to catch up with today's average, it'll go from 325 million to 575 million in the next 12 years. And Indian cities are incapable of managing what it currently has, let alone all the new stuff that has to come in. This problem is not just here. London. We all go to London, we all love London, and I don't know how many of you travel to London, but you go from Westminster to Stratford, which is where the Olympic Village was, 10 stops. Every stop, the life expectancy of that neighborhood goes down by 1 year. So the life expectancy difference between Westminster and Stratford is 10 years, and the entire East London area, which is the size of New York, from Harlem down to Battery Park, the same size and scale, has unemployment of 48.7% with 80 plus languages spoken. So the fact of the matter is, London, if it's taken as an economy, is the 5th largest GDP in the world, and it's a kindergarten. We had the entire mayoral delegation of Amsterdam come to Bangalore, spent 5 days just at the Bangalore campus with me and my team, because the mayor is telling me, I got a serious problem in Amsterdam. We are very, very successful. We are very wealthy. We are the #1 IT economy of Europe, because that's where the hub is. But we got over 25% of immigrants coming from North Africa and some other parts of the world. You got 2 societies emerging. If you go to Paris, the story is no different. Don't go by the main streets. So when I go to Paris now, it drives my car service guys crazy, because I always tell them, I've seen all the nice places, now go through each parallel roads. I take the parallel roads. You take the parallel roads in some parts of Paris, you will not know that you're in Paris. So the story is not about India. The story is not about Brazil. The story is also about London. The story is also about Brussels. It's also about Amsterdam. And it's also about America. So the whole issue is, when you take this, the energy demand. By the way, we talk about tweeting. How many of you tweet? It's over 1 billion tweets a week today. Each tweet consumes 0.25 watts of power. 1 billion tweets, and that is 22,500 megawatts of power a week, which is what you need for a small city. We don't think about the implications of these things that we're talking about and what it does to the network. And by the way, America is in serious trouble when it comes to the electric grid. Do you know how much we are spending on R&D for electricity and electric grid in America? 0.3%. Do you know how much you're spending for pet foods? 6.3%. You spend more on R&D for pet foods than for the electric grid, and we have a shortage of the electricity. So this is the kind of stuff that we have to work at, because all of this means, and by the way, if America is having this problem, can you imagine Africa, Asia, West Asia? That's why we took a global approach and we said, we have to do something dramatic. How does the network help us? Now I want to show you some numbers on the aging and the shrinking. Take a look at the top 10 economies. In 1820, India and China were the #1, #2. US had 1.8% of the world's GDP. By 1999, US was 30%. India has, of course, disappeared. China has come down to 3.8. By 2009, China has moved up to #3 at 8.6. Brazil had moved up. India is not in the scene. Now take a look at 2050. India and China is over 50% of the world's GDP. By the way, US is #2. And you take a look, only 2 European countries remain in the top 10. UK and Germany, and I assure you one of those 2 is not going to be there, because those numbers still underestimating. So look at the other countries: India, Brazil, Mexico, Russia, and Indonesia. These are going to be the top 10 economies in the world. So what we did at Cisco is saying, where's the growth going to come for us? It has to be from here. So we said emerging markets, which is what I run now. Emerging markets, we have BRICM, which is BRIC plus Mexico. We have boards, we have chairmen, we oversee it. Then I created the next one called TIPS, which is Turkey, Indonesia, Poland, South Africa, and Saudi Arabia. That's the next focus for us to grow. And then the next 10, which is Qatar, UAE, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, Ukraine, and Chile, and Argentina, although I'm going to kick Argentina out and put something else back in, because we just can't make, it's not the right time. This is where we're going to get 40% of Cisco's future growth, these countries that I just mentioned. However, when you look at that, there's something more important in the top 10 economies. Now take this and say, what's the per capita GDP? And most of those countries will not show up in the top 10. You know, in the 2000 decade, the top 2 richest by per capita is Singapore and Hong Kong. 2010 to 2020, the top 10 GDP for number 1, number 2 is Hong Kong, Singapore. 2020 to 2030, the top 2, Hong Kong, Singapore. 2030 to 2040, top 2, Hong Kong, Singapore. 2040 to 2050, Hong Kong, Singapore. You can look at Qatar as an exception, but those are the economies that will continue to be rich. UK will continue to be rich. Germany will continue to be rich, and India will be the most powerful second or third country in the world, but it'll be one of the poorer countries on a per capita. So the challenge for us, all of us, is how am I not going to be in this market? But if I am going to be in the market, you better do things dramatically different, because the people in Brazil and people in India and people in Thailand, people in Vietnam are not going to be able to afford it or will not want to consume the products the way we are selling it today. So for companies like an IBM, Cisco, Siemens, and all the other companies that have an established way of doing business, we have to dramatically think differently. So we said, let's create a second headquarters, and that second headquarters will start wagging the tail right now, and soon the dog will become the tail. And that, I think, is the future. So now you take a look at this, and then you take a look at the aging. And the world, by 2050, 16% of the world is going to be over 65. 23% of China is going to be. So this is amazing. China is aging. Today in India, 60.2% of India is under the age of 27. The world's largest group of teenagers are in India. Facebook and the others could see a competition emerge from these places because they'll be thinking differently unless you're there on the ground doing things. But here's this important thing. 600 million children in India under the age of 19 are in villages where they have one teacher in the entire school. Not one in class, one in the entire school. And by the way, 60% of the time the teacher doesn't show up. There is nothing more dangerous than 600 million children sitting in villages with no education, no health care, no aspiration, access to the internet, that they get information on what is happening. That Jasmine revolution will be nothing compared to what you hear that'll emerge if we don't resolve those problems. This is a universal problem. So when you take a look at the hyper-growth countries, we better figure out, and by the way, let's take one of them. So just take Tanzania. Tanzania's got 45 million people. The whole country of Tanzania does not have a single pediatric surgeon, a single pediatric cardiologist, a single pediatric-oriented doctor. Not one. The first one is coming back from UK this month. The first one. What do you do? Well, the answer comes back is there a way that a doctor sitting in UK, a doctor sitting in India can help do the radiology, help structure it? So a company in India called Teleradiology, which was founded by Yale doctors. You should bring her here to speak. They started this company. It's the #1 telemedicine company in America today because it is doing the stuff in Appalachian. It is doing the stuff in Tibet. It is doing all the radiology back end, giving doctor advice with video out of Bangalore. And it's the fastest growing company. In fact, Obama, when he came to India, said, I want to meet her. So the whole point is there's going to be new business models emerging. Paul Krugman in 1998 wrote an article that said the world may globalize, but services industry cannot globalize because that's global baloney. Services industry is the way we talk. We always said you have to be there co-creating and you have to be there on the side. That is just not true. Increasingly, services will become more globalized and you will get access. By the way, you might say, doctors, I don't want it. But 50 million people who are uninsured in America will not care. They get high quality video, quality connection with a doctor sitting in India or somewhere else, advising and giving them the information. I'm going to talk a little bit about it. That's the world. But in that context, marketing becomes big M marketing. It's not just about what things you'll do. Do we even understand how we're going to price these things when most of services in all these countries will be public-private partnerships? Increasingly. By the way, go to UK today. Not a single one of the UK prisons are managed by the government. It's managed by a company called Circle. T5, the terminal, is managed by Circle. All of the non-military equipment and materials that America sends to Afghanistan for the Afghanistan war is managed by a private entity called Circle. In that context, how do we do pricing and how does bonds come into play? That's where we are working in Smart Connected communities worldwide. So I want to speak to that a little bit. as we go forward. So, this is the world's opportunity for marketing. That is, 700 million people are being urbanized. Somebody mentioned today phones. How many cell phones are in the world today? It's about 5 billion. 5 billion cell phones in the world. How many toothbrushes are sold in a year? 2.3 billion. So there are more cell phones than toothbrushes in this world. So there are people actually walking around. I went to some villages in that's one of the things I do, because urbanization is not a city problem. It's people moving from rural areas into cities. They don't move from rural areas to cities because they want to disrupt their families. They go from rural areas to cities for lack of urban services, healthcare, education, jobs, and some culture. So the question is, if I can use technology, if I can use new infrastructure, if I can use new business models to take education into rural areas, to take healthcare into rural areas, to take jobs into rural areas, I can slow down urbanization, and then I can have a much more balanced growth. And this is the vision that we have. So when we talk about connecting the world, this is the point that we're saying, how do we do that? And by the way, look at all the numbers. Only 3% of all buildings in developed market meets LEED standards. Only 3%. 80% of the world's energy is consumed in cities. More than 60% of the energy in a city is consumed in commercial buildings like this. And 30 to 40% of energy in this building, especially in this building, and also in the newer buildings, are wasted. And it is wasted if you go to a brand new building in Manhattan, or a brand new building that's built now. I guarantee you 20 to 30% of the energy is wasted because of a simple thing. In a new building, there are 75 to 85 protocols that don't talk to each other. The lighting doesn't talk to the fire system. The fire systems don't talk to the telephone system. Telephone systems don't talk to the energy systems. So what happens is you have offices where people are not sitting in the office, they're in a conference room or outside. Their phones are on, their laptops are on, their computers are on, the lights are on, the energy is on, and in the result, you waste 30%, 40%. So we built a small city in Bangalore. That's my headquarters. And what we did there, we said we connect every building. So when I move from my building 10 and I go to building 16, when I sit, I go, swipe my badge, it tells me where my rooms, what I want. When I get there, my entire system in building 10 shuts down, and my computer, my laptop, my phones, everything moves to that phone with a digital sign that says Anil Menon now sits in building 16. What that does is, we suddenly had one less building needed. So I saved $20 million in CapEx, because I suddenly increased my utilization rate of room from 45 to 50% to 75%. This is the new way Wuxi is going to be built. This is the new way Guangzhou is going to be building of the new cities, because we're engaged there. So we have 9 different iconic projects worldwide. London, Barcelona, Rio, Skolkovo, the new city coming out of Moscow, Waterfront Toronto, Barangaroo in Australia, a brand new 8,000 acres, brand new city built by a billionaire from England who used to own 30% of Christie's, Lake Nona in Orlando. Brand new medical city, completely transformed. And therein comes new opportunity. I was talking to Muhtar Kent and said, Muhtar, why don't you come and sponsor these cities? These are all private, public-private partnership. You become the sponsor. You come in and help with water hydration, water filtration, bring all the technologies from code, and then you become one of the key partners. That is going to be the new marketing. That is how things will happen, and that's what will happen. So this is where we are looking at stuff. And by the way, I want you to imagine we are building one London every month for the next 15 to 20 years. That is the scale of what we're doing. One London every month for the next 15 to 20 years, in order for us to break the problem down. Otherwise, we're going to have social unrest worldwide. The scale is that. So in that context, we said, what do we do? And how do we answer the question? And the questions are around energy management, talent mismatch. This is one of the biggest opportunities, talent. Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Forum said something to me that I never forget, because it was one of the more intriguing ideas. He said, today we don't have global leaders. And I was listening to Ted speak this morning. We don't have global leaders. And I probed him, I said, what do you mean by that? And he said, look, Anil, even your boss is not a global leader. What he meant by that is today we have CEOs who know their global operation. They can tell you my market share in Europe is this much, my market share in Asia is this much. I have 16,000 employees sitting in India. I got 15,000 people in Europe, but they don't understand the global. He said they're not globally aware. He said, but the next generation of kids are going to become more globally aware. And I had some example because my daughter, who lived her life in New York, moves to India, and she said, I'm going to be there for 1 month. If I don't like it, I'm coming back. I negotiated and said, no, 6 months. 1 year, please. The first 3 weeks, I was like this, like, oh my God, she's going to hate a school. High school, imagine taking a high school kid away from Scarsdale into, those of you know Scarsdale, and take them to a place where there are villages, which is not like the village of Scarsdale. And it is, or Darien. But the point is, after 3, and she goes by a bus because the school is very egalitarian, so it's not even a private bus, it's the public bus that is chartered. So those of you who have gone to India and seen the public buses, again, not cool. It's cool to take a picture maybe, but they sit there for 1.5 hours each way to go to school, the international school. 3 hours just going and coming back. Not once in 3.5 years has she complained. Not once. So one day I said, why do you like it? I don't like it, I'm ready to go back. She said, no, I know you don't. Please tell me. After 5 efforts, I said, look, I'm not asking you as a father. I'm asking you as the Chief Globalization Officer of Cisco. Can you please tell me why you like it? Because I want to understand. Because I'm not even on Facebook, so can you please? So she looks at me and says, really? So I said, yeah, can you tell me why do you like it? She said, because I didn't think the kids would be cool here. So what do you mean by that? She says, I can talk to them about Glee, I can talk to them about music, I can talk about everything, they know it. By the way, Dad, they talk about FIFA, I have no idea what the hell that is. So they're teaching her about European football, they're teaching her about all the other stuff, and the kids are sitting, and when she said, Istanbul, I'm going to Turkey, 5 to 10 of them have said, I've also been there. Suddenly she doesn't feel like she's talking to people who don't understand her. This is the new global economy. Kids who are growing up, they understand and they get it. When they go to Malaysia, they don't say, why is Malaysia not like Paris? They accept Malaysia for what it is and for the people as they are. And that is one of the things I learned when I travel a lot. Today, I never compare cities, I never compare people, so I never feel like I've ever gone to a foreign city. And that is one of those things that happens over time. So this healthcare and access. So first internet, so I have to do my commercial here because everybody else talk about the cool stuff. Let me tell you about the stuff that makes everybody else cool. But we like our money that we're getting. So, but seriously, this is some of the, what happened to that? Is Huawei came in here and turned it off? No. The first internet was basically this. This is what we were talking about 5 years ago. Why is it that we were not mobile? It was all about data transport, it's all about messaging, and it's all about Facebook and emails and all of that. But it is not an industrialized network. Today, we are trying to build the industrialized network, the next network, which is going to be much more secure and much more authenticated, because what is going to happen is the most dramatic is the experience. This is stuff we're talking about. Internet is becoming video-based. It's no longer data-based. And increasingly video-based things. So let me just speak to that in a minute, because that is going to transform everything. So I'm going to ask all of you to just think about this as marketers. If you had unlimited computing at a reasonable price, if you had unlimited storage at a reasonable price, if everything was connected to everything else, would you run healthcare the same way? Would you run education the same way? Would you run transportation the same way? Because it's no longer about transportation, it's about mobility. Would you run a city the same way? Would you run your own life the same way? If you ask that question and work your way backwards, technology is the enabler that allows you to think differently. So we're saying it's about the experience, it's about collaboration, it's about sustainability, and how do you do it in a distributed, virtualized manner as you become more and more global. So this is what we're calling the second internet, or today you will have heard about people talking about the Internet of Things and Internet of Everything. That is what we are putting our entire investments in the future behind. So where does that come in? It's video, it's collaboration, it's smart connected communities, and it's virtualization of cloud. Those are the 4 priorities of Cisco, and Smart connected communities for me is one of the coolest things because I work with cities that I've never heard of called Ribas. Those of you have never heard of Ribas in Spain, everything is connected. The schools now have automation, so when little children are playing, the basketball just comes down. Of course, when they move away, the next kid comes in, it goes back up. Think about the CapEx and OpEx implication if you can adjust those things. It's on the same budget. How do you rebuy? So this is what we do, and we say that network is the platform. So this is what our vision is. In the 18th century, all economic development was around waterways. All the big cities were around waterways. 19th century, they were around railroads. 20th century was around the highways. 21st century will be around networks of information. And it is the networks of information that connects us digitally along with the others. So in that context, how do you make that network platform secure so when you go and talk to a doctor who's sitting up in Malaysia or sitting up in England, you are sure you're getting the doctor that you signed up for and you are the patient that they signed you up for. So this is what we are working on, and I want to talk about the implications of virtualization, collaboration, mobility, security, video, because it's and we work with companies like Facebook, as you can imagine, and eBay's of the world, and Baidu's of the world, worldwide, because that's where we have to think about use. Ben Bernanke spoke at MIT 2 years ago and said, IT industry is no longer a special purpose technology, it is now a general purpose technology. Those of you economists will get exactly what he meant by that. IT has become like water, power, and telecom. It is not the manufacturing of it that's going to drive the GDP of a country, it's the application of it that's going to drive the GDP. Technology is already there. Companies like IBM and Cisco, we understand that. So we're saying, how do we apply it? That's what we call solutions. People talk about solutions, most of us haven't quite figured out what the hell does that mean. And how do you define it in a way that is consistent? And that is what going to be the next big thing, is definition of solutions and what actually are you selling. So in that context, I want to just talk about this device. 13 billion devices are connected today. By 2020, 50 billion devices will be connected to everything else. And by the way, many of these devices are going to become video-based. And so, I just want to bring up some facts here. In 2007, you had 36 exabytes. How many of you are into exabytes and petabytes and zettabytes? Huh? Okay. Petabytes. 1 petabyte is equal to 13 million years of DVD quality movies. Just put that in perspective. 1 petabyte. 1,000 petabyte is 1 exabyte. 1,000 exabyte is 1 zettabyte. So this is a crap load of data. And we are going to move by 2013, that is this year, 91% of all consumer internet is video-based. I'll give you another example to give you a statistic. 2011, a little over a year ago, 2011, average 20 families in America loaded onto the internet as much traffic as the entire internet of 2008. By 2020, one family in America will load onto the internet the same amount of traffic as all of internet worldwide in 2008. And much of it will be video-based. And it won't be Gangnam Style only. Gangnam Style would have moved up to 6 billion hits, but there will be more. And what will be more? It will be a teacher teaching a child sitting somewhere else. I'll give you a simple example. I was spending some time with Michelle Burns, who's doing a big project now for the government. Take a company, I just came from 3M this few days ago. 65% of 3M employees worldwide is eligible for retirement today. The world is aging. But they're young, they're strong, they want to continue working. I know for many of you, 60 means, oh my God, they're dead. But Sam Palmisano, who had to step down at the age of 60, could have gone for another 10 years without ever slowing down. John Chambers, who's 63, has got more energy than you and I combined. I guarantee you that. So why should they retire at the age of 60? Why can't a teacher who's sitting in Idaho or sitting in London, who has got unemployment and respect, teach a kid sitting in Seoul English? By the way, 3% of Korean GDP is spent on tutoring. The highest paid teacher in Korea is an English teacher who makes $3 million a year. I have to believe there's a person over here saying, I can do it for one. Or a doctor. So, or that, yeah, exactly. Or you can go up. Now we are saying this is the future of the world Transforming energy, education, healthcare, retail. So let me go very quickly because I know I'm running out of time here. But this is where the new markets are going to be. That's going to have different offers. It's going to have different distribution systems. It's going to have different pricing mechanism. It's going to have different connecting. We have to think about if your doctor is sitting in England, if your patient is sitting in India, and if you're going to be connected to a network, try to tell me the business model. That's where we're moving to. By the way, there was a time when Goldman Sachs used to say, oh, no, we send our lower end stuff here, but all the high end investment analysis has to be done in America, it has to be done in London, it has to be done in Singapore. There are 8,000 people doing that stuff now in Bangalore. They're paid $120,000, $120,000, which is a lot of money in India. It's not a lot of money if you're living in Manhattan, but these kids are flying 20, 25 days in a year to all the big cities. They don't mind sitting in Bangalore doing that stuff. One of my analysts is from one of the top schools in India, IIM Ahmedabad. So those of you know, it's easier to get into some schools in Connecticut and others than into IIM Ahmedabad. So I was in the restroom at 11:30 at night after one of my meetings, and he was standing. But the point is, I looked at him and I said, "I'm so sorry to keep you late." So he looked at me very seriously, like, "What do you mean?" So I said, "I know it's 11:30." He says, "But I've never had a regular job. This is normal for me. They go in the afternoon, they sleep for 2 hours, they come back, work, they go in the middle of the night. I sleep 3 to 4 hours now on an average. But I'm an old man. I'm only 30, but if you look at me, but even then, these 3 hours will kill you unless you have trained yourself for it. And the young generation are training themselves for that. They live differently, they think differently, and they're breathing differently. This is where we go. I'm going to speak a little bit more on Smart Connected because after all, that's my baby. Now here is what we're doing. This is $1 billion business for us, telemedicine. We never thought, so I'll ask you a simple question. This is how we should redefine, and this is what marketing should be. Marketing should not be about answers. Marketing is, are you even asking the right questions? Don't come up with an answer on traffic management if you have not asked the question, why is there traffic? And that's what we did in Amsterdam. Why is there traffic? Before you do congestion prices, we found that, by the way, in New York and in Los Angeles, 40 to 60%, depending on the cities in America, between the time of 4 and 7 o'clock, 40 to 60% of traffic is looking for parking spaces. The average Parisian spends 4 years of their life searching for parking spaces. Don't ask me how I know these statistics. I know this because I have a group of guys who do it and they think I love this, so they keep producing more statistics. And I keep saying, okay, maybe it's not 4 years, maybe it's 3 years. But 3 years searching for parking space? Why would you need to do that if I can get GPS location-based services that looks into your Microsoft Outlook saying that you are going to a restaurant at this place, saying there's a parking space closer, this, by the way, would you like to bid for it and see how much you're willing to pay for that parking? Tell me if that's not a new business model. And you're willing, how many would be willing to pay $9 a year as a subscription for a service that tells you where your parking spaces are open, and then you can reserve it. And by the way, if you're a restaurant owner, you can tell them when you're checking in, by the way, there's a parking token, this is the number, when you get there, this is the number you put in, and we have taken care of your parking. Tell me if that's not a new business model. And that is going to be a huge new model of things to do. That's what we're doing with a company here in America called Streetline. We're doing it in Nice. Those of you who are going to go to Nice, in June of 2013, the mayor and I are going to stand up and we're going to talk about a completely connected Nice. I like to go to places like Nice because it's an underdeveloped nation, part of the world, so I'm moving my headquarters to Cabo San Lucas because again it's Mexico, it is an emerging market. So, by the way, the question on healthcare, this is a fascinating one. Do you know for an average doctor consulting, you don't need to touch the patient for 80%? They don't need to touch. Ask the question, then why are you touching? Why can't a paramedic touch you? So sit somewhere else, paramedic will touch you, high quality definition, high quality video, and the doctor can look at you in a very immersive. Those of you who have sat through telepresence, I guarantee you in 5 minutes you don't know you're in a video conference. It feels like you're here. And if you want to do one more thing to load the system, get on YouTube, owned by Facebook, and put down John Chambers' telepresence, and then you show the 2 videos that are there, one's with the King of Saudi Arabia and one in Bangalore, and I guarantee you cannot tell who's live and who's being digitally as a hologram brought up there. We're already there. We're already there. Now imagine that for retail. We're already coming up with these mirrors where you stand in front of it, it entirely takes the stuff, but your skin tone is the one that kills you. So we went to Steven Spielberg, paid him a crap load of money, and he's come up with the technology. So now we can adjust for each skin tone on the same video screen. Because we are IP enabled. It all comes back to our IP enabled. So this is what we're doing with healthcare, and we're doing, things elsewhere. Now here's what I want to say. These are the new opportunities in medicine. Smart beds. Connect the smart beds so that the doctors get the information before. Connect the beds to where the patient is sitting somewhere else and the doctor sits somewhere else. Transmit the data in such a high quality way and run it all through a back office. Our entire worldwide facilities of Cisco is run through 5 back offices now. So if somebody opens the door in London at Bedfont Lake and keeps it open for 2 minutes, we get a signal in. The lights come on, and immediately we tell them, please, can you shut the door, please? You are wasting energy here. With an Indian accent, but he gets the point, he shuts it. We also have what we call barbed wire 3.0, which we have cameras. So if you, again, I welcome next Indian trip, bring them to Bangalore. Don't take them to crap places like Delhi. Delhi's not safe anymore anyway, so don't take them to Delhi anymore. Bring them to Bangalore. You can see our campus. We have digital wires, so if you go touch it, immediately the camera comes and the picture is sent to the closest security agents. Go check why he's touching the thing. No shocks, but you get the picture immediately. Now, what does that do for security? Get away from guards, guns, and dogs, and make it digital. Another application, you have your phone. If you are traveling from one part of the city or one location where you're a little nervous, how many of you would be willing to pay for something that says, follow me? And you turn on the camera, it's following you, and immediately somebody is monitoring you until you get into the car. Once you get into the car, they're saying you're all right, but they're monitoring you as you walk. Now, if my daughter is going somewhere, I would pay for this service saying, in the evenings, I want you to use follow me when you're getting from your office to your parking lot. You can do that today. We don't have a business model for it. So this is where smart grid integration, I won't go into that because it's an obvious one, because this is where we have to go. But the question is, how do you get multiple sources and bring them up into different pricing models? So, city challenges. This, by the way, I should have shown you the pictures of the London Olympics and what the conditions were. It looked like that on the back when they were building it. So even developed countries are struggling. But take a look at all these challenges that we have. This is the next $40 trillion are going to be spent on infrastructure worldwide over the next 10, 20 years. 40 trillion. IT spend is 1.2. If I can take it up from 1.2 to 1.8, that's a new business TAM. And for us in marketing and for you in marketing, it's an entire new business model. And that's where the world is moving. This is the city we are engaged in Seoul, outside of Incheon, Korea. This is the Songdo, it's built by an American. And he sold his entire company here, took the 600 million and built the city. This is where MacArthur landed, for those of you in history. Exact location, reclaimed land, is completely networked, and we are building this as the world's smartest. And by the way, UN Green Climate chose this over Geneva and over Switzerland to bring the headquarters. So this is where we're going, connecting everything together. And we're saying if you connect everything, people to people, machine to machine, the unconnected 99% is where the new opportunities are going to be. This is where intelligent highway, intelligent factory, cloud services, this is where all the new business models and marketing is needed. So I'm just going to finish up by saying, we have talked about data, but much of what we say, we always talk about data from citizens. The bigger source of data is going to be data from the city, and how do you connect them all together so your citizens can have a different quality of life, businesses can have a different quality of experience, and it's not about sustainability of environment, it's sustainability of economics, and sustainability of social. This is what we are doing in Smart Connected Communities, coming in saying, how does the IT platform transform the way you can offer services in retail, in healthcare, in education, managing cities remotely, integrating cities so that a child sitting in Songdo, a child sitting in waterfront Toronto, sitting in Chengdu in China, are all working on the same project together, and I guarantee you that child in Chengdu, when they see an Indian, will not think of him as a foreigner. Now, I'm finishing it all by saying, we won't get there. Is this a new dawn or a false beginning? So I'll go to my hero, Tom Edison. Some of you are teasing me about my BlackBerry. It's even worse. I only listen to cylinder phonographs. I don't do Facebook. I'm into cylinder phonographs. And if he was born again, and he comes, by the way, since I'm now in Bangalore, I can say talk about born again reincarnation. No one looks at me. Idalia, this is the holy grail. If he came to my house in Florida, where I have all my collections, he sees my machines, he says, I know that machine, I touched it. I have some machines, there are only 3 known to exist. I have one is in the Victoria and Albert Museum, and he touched them. And do you know how you know? Do you know how you know that he touched most? By teeth marks, because he was completely deaf. He listened to music by biting the piano and biting the phonograph. So you know that he was there by his teeth marks. And so if he came and he saw this, and I said, now I want you to see what Ambika is listening to, and showed this thing, he would say, I don't know what that is. I can't even understand how this came to be. He will never see the evolution. However, if I took him to 1892 and said, this is your Edison General Electric Company, and your footprint that you created, this is what he drew. The electric grid. Today, if I took him over to the Duke Energy plant right across from my house, a little bit away, this is what they have. It has not changed in 120 years because it was so siloed. There was not this consumer experience, not this multiple industries, not this public-private partnerships. So in order for all that I just talked about, we need visionary leadership from politicians, from government leaders, from businesses, from citizens. We need global standards, we need smart regulation, public-private partnership, and new ecosystems that transforms the marketplace as we know it. So this is my story. As that book said, the unbiased look at the Civil War, the Southern perspective. This is an unbiased look at the next internet, the Cisco perspective. So thank you again.